Before I get into this video, I just want to correct myself. My two aunts and my uncle, they came that first Friday night when my mom was in the hospital. And the conversation I had with my brother over text that I, showed you guys in the last video, that happened on this Saturday. The other thing is this video, I don't know what was going on this day, but I was just having like a bad day with everything. My audio wasn't working out. My camera, I had to use my, the rear camera, not the forward facing one. And it was like off center. And then my battery died while I was taping. So I just had to leave the house. So I jumped in my car. So, it's a little messed up, but you guys will still get the point, hopefully. And also, there's a little bit of a buzzing noise in the beginning. It's only going to last for about a minute or so. I apologize. I just got a new mic. I'm working on it. All right. So that was the Friday night. And then the conversation with my brother was on Saturday. So Sunday night, we're leaving the hospital. And all of a sudden, my brother's wife, this bougie ass bitch. All right, wait, let me rewind. We gotta rewind for a second. Remember that day when they were at my mom's house and Satan was going crazy because the lights were flashing or whatever? So that day, that same day, me and my brother we were talking, and he goes, "We got mom a housekeeper." What? Like, first of all, yeah, all right, that's nice of them. But, like, they never cared that our house was clean. Why all of a sudden do you give a shit that our house was clean? Like, this is so fucking weird. Like, all these little things. So I'm thinking that they were going to pay somebody to clean our house one time. I was keeping up with our house. Probably not that great, but I was doing everything else. So it was like, it was a lot. I mean, our house wasn't getting that messy anyway. She lives by herself. Like, there was not much going on. She really wasn't moving. I was like, oh, whatever, her house could use a good scrub down. So I'm like, oh, that was nice of them, to get this cleaning lady. I talked to my mom the next day, and my mom's like, oh, no, they're not paying for it. I have to pay for it. I'm like, are you fucking kidding me? Because, like, the way they presented it to me, it was like they were paying for it. I just gotta tell you guys, my mom was a little bit of a cheap Charlie, like, not putting her down, but she was. And like something like that, I could tell my mom didn't want to pay for it. But like Satan forces things on you. Like, she'll just be like, let me call up my housekeeper. And she's fucking dialing the phone, and before you know it, you have a housekeeper and you're paying for it. She's so fucking bougie, or she tries to be bougie, but she's so cheap. Like, a housekeeper to me is somebody who's like lives with you. Like, you have a housekeeper and a butler, like they have their own quarters on your property. Stop acting so bougie and just say you have a cleaning lady. Just like the nanny. It's a babysitter, dude. Satan's like, she wants to give off this, illusion that she's like loaded. My brother's driving her Mercedes, and they had to move in this like ritzy area. Her daughter goes to private school. Like, she's one of those people. Everything has to be the best of the best. Meanwhile, not putting people down for this. You go to her house and you go to a party, and she has like Dr. Pepper. Like, not real Dr. Pepper. She doesn't even buy the name brand soda. Oh, your kid goes to private school. My brother's driving a Mercedes. You live in a $500,000 house, but you can't provide fucking Coca-Cola or Pepsi at a party, like, you cheap bitch. Whatever. Doesn't matter. I'm not saying that's bad. I'm just saying, like, somebody who acts like they're so rich and they live this bougie-ass lifestyle with a nanny and a housekeeper, and you're buying, like, the fucking cheap-ass store-brand generic soda. Get the fuck out of here. So, all of a sudden, we're leaving the hospital Sunday night. And she's like, oh, by the way, you have to let Rosa, our housekeeper, in. And I'm like, what? Why are you having a housekeeper come to my mom's house? Her house was cleaned, no kidding, about a week prior to this. She didn't even move. I'm like, why would she need a housekeeper if she's in the hospital? They're like, oh, could you go there and let her in and this and that? And I'm like, again, I felt like they were doing this to try to keep me away from the hospital. This is so unnecessary. I could tell my mom wasn't even into it. I asked my mom, and she was like, oh, whatever. I don't feel like arguing. I know you guys are probably like, what? How'd you get in a car? My phone died while I was talking. I felt like they were trying to get that cleaning lady that day to keep me out of the house for some reason. Like I had this feeling it kept going on. Why are you trying to keep me away? What's the story? Just doesn't make any sense. So I end up on the phone with my brother that day, and I had to ask him something about the cleaning lady. I don't even remember exactly what happened. We're such a piece of shit. I call my brother up. We're on the phone. talking. I'm telling him how worried I am about her. I'm like, I don't know what she's gonna do. I don't know how she's gonna survive. Everything's like no big deal to him, the way he's like playing this all off. She could stay at our house. We'll put a curtain up in the living room. They have like a 5-bedroom house. You're gonna put her behind a fucking curtain like the Wizard of Oz in your living room? Like, you can't even spare a bedroom for her? Mom would never, ever, 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 ever in a million years have gone to their house. She didn't even feel comfortable going there when she wasn't sick. So we're sitting there talking, and I'm like, she might have dialysis, and how's she gonna get the dialysis, and how's she gonna feed herself and bathe herself. All of a sudden, this motherfucker cuts me off. And you know what he says to me? Listen up, children. He goes, one thing that we have to do if Mom gets out of the hospital is we have to bring her to an elder care attorney, because if they put her in one of those nursing facilities, they're going to take all her money when she dies. Dude, it was like the record scratch. Like, the brakes were like, what the fuck are you talking about? What? And I'm like, what does that have to do with her care? That right there, when he said that to me, told me everything that he gave a shit about. Listen, I would have gave up my whole inheritance to have her in a nursing home or wherever she would have been that would have made her the most comfortable. I lived my whole life without money. I cannot believe that that was something that he thought was fucking important at that point in time. That's not a concern for her. That's a concern for you. Why are you worried about her money? You don't need money right now. What is the problem? Maybe they do. Maybe that's why they were so worried. Maybe they overspend and live beyond their means. I don't know their financial situation. For real. And then, of course, the guilt caught up with me, because I don't want to upset my mom. I don't want this to start a whole big fight. I just don't understand where this guy's head was at. Well, I know where it was at. All he was worrying about was her fucking money. All he gave a shit about was money. He made it so clear to me. It's disgusting. I hang up on him. He texts me a couple minutes later and he goes, let me know when you get to the hospital. I don't even know why he wanted me to know. I said, Steven, I'm sorry. I'm just scared. We have to talk to her and we have to figure this shit out. I'm getting dressed now. We are heading up soon. What time do you take lunch? He says 12, which is weird because the day before he told me he goes to lunch at 1 or 1:30. He goes, can you get the social worker up there? I'm not sure what her healthcare proxy says, but it should say what her wishes are if she's not able to make her own decisions on her own. And I'm like, where are you getting this shit from? First of all, I had already explained the healthcare proxy to him, okay? My mom already explained what it was. Why are you still fucking asking? I don't understand what the problem is with this healthcare proxy thing. Like, why are you so concerned all of a sudden? Makes no sense. So I write back to him and I said, it doesn't say anything. That's why I wanted us to talk. I said, Steven, if she comes unable to make her own choices medically, that's all the healthcare proxy is. So if she needs a breathing tube or to be artificially fed, etc. And then he never answered back. Let me just tell you guys something. Satan is controlling all this conversation. And that's why my brother, he gives back like 1-word answers or 2-word answers, because if I'm not saying what she wants me to say, he ends the conversation. So then he texts me later on and he writes, see if the social worker can meet us there on Wednesday. I have my stepdaughter's confirmation tomorrow afternoon. And I'm like, are you fucking serious? Like, I wouldn't even worry about a confirmation right now. I would worry about your mom and saving her life right now. That should be your sole focus. Let your fucking wife go to her daughter's confirmation. Let her father go. You don't have to be there, dude. I think it's understandable. The next day comes, okay? I just didn't understand why all this shit was happening. I was so confused why he was so worried about this healthcare proxy thing. And I'm like, is he not telling me something? Like, I don't know. It was so weird to me. So he texts me the next day. This is now Tuesday, October 25th. So they were supposed to do the radiation that Monday, and they never ended up doing it. He says, Mom got the radiation this morning. She was in too much pain, and I couldn't, he wrote play still, but I think he meant lay still. And they're going to have to try again later with sedation. She also woke up not being able to breathe this morning at 5:30. She's waiting on dialysis too. I said, I talked to her this morning. She has to, oh my God, she has to get the dialysis. She has to. She's not going to be able to breathe. When your kidneys aren't working, your body starts like taking on excess fluid because it's not being filtered out by your kidneys, and you're not peeing it out, what happens is you start to like swell up. Water collects in your lungs. Like, it's not good. I spoke to the doctor that morning, and the doctor basically explained, like, your mom's not understanding, like, the gravity of the situation. She's not accepting her situation. And again, she's on painkillers. Like, she has no fucking idea what's going on. And so I called my aunt, I texted my aunt, and I asked her if she could come down to the hospital. Because I was like, listen, I need her to get on dialysis. She wasn't being clear with the doctors. Like, they were telling her she needs dialysis, and she's like, well, I guess if I have to, I will. Like, they just wanted a clear yes or no answer because she had to sign consent forms. Wow, this just goes to show you. I'm just going to read these texts. So these are from Monday night. I texted my aunt. Before I get into reading these, I just want to give a warning that the nature of some of the stuff that I'm talking about is a little graphic. So if you're sensitive to, medical stuff that gets you queasy, you might want to skip this part. The other thing is that, I've really kind of fought with myself whether I wanted to share these, because of my mom's humility, and I don't want to be disrespectful or anything to what she went through. However, I feel like it's kind of important to illustrate, how worried I was and how bad of condition she was in at that time. And, I was kind of just like going through this by myself and trying to figure out like what was going on, and, I think it's kind of important for me to share that so you guys understand how bad things really were. I said, thank you for coming today. I just left. I literally went home, dropped Jessie off, peed, put my Uggs on, and came back. She was really out of it tonight. She keeps picking up her phone and looking at weird shit like the settings and text messages from Kmart Pharmacy. It's so weird. So the doctor told me she's not accepting reality. This has been her problem the whole time. Aunt Debbie, one of the nurses, scrubbed her down. She was sitting in bloody piss. It smelled god awful. It was disgusting. It was so weird. It's like she took a fucking turn for the worst in 2 days. I don't know if it's the pain stuff or what, but she's so out of it. It's so scary to see her like this. My aunt writes back, Lee, I think that it's the meds, because if you notice, right before she's due another dose, she is with it. I'm so glad I was up there today. You know how I feel about my sister. I'm having a hard, it says, hard Tim. Oh, I think she meant to write a hard time. Accepting that she is sick. I don't know what I will do without her. I'll always be there for you. That's funny. I'm having a hard time accepting that she is sick, she wrote. I said, Aunt Debbie, I don't want to accept it either. Trust me, I can't even deal. Mommy is my best friend. I talk to her a million times a day. All day long, I make mental notes like I have to tell her this or that. I can't even think of not being able to do that. I'm just glad I talked to her as much as I possibly could. I'm always here for you too. Please don't ever forget that. So then I text her the next morning and I say, oh my God, Mommy called me this morning and she's like, Leanna, I couldn't breathe at all this morning. She said I thought I was dying. She was screaming, help me, help me. She said my friend that's a nurse was holding her hand and my mom was screaming, you're gonna watch me die. I wish I could be there with her. I hate that she has to go through this alone. She wants me to go to her house because this stupid cleaning lady is coming. I can't even fathom why. I couldn't sleep last night. Thank God I talked her into the dialysis because she's in desperate need and that's why she can't breathe. Okay, so I had wake up early that morning, run to the hospital, talk to her about getting dialysis, okay? She finally accepted. I got her to sign a waiver and consent and everything like that. The next morning, Tuesday morning, and this is now the 25th. So they've tried to do the radiation that morning. They woke her up at like some god-awful time in the morning, like 6 o'clock in the morning. They tried to do the radiation and she couldn't lay still. She was in so much pain. That day I was like, all right, I'm going to bring Jessie back because my mom loved my son. My son was her source of joy for the last couple of years of her life. That was the one thing that brought her happiness and joy. I really didn't want to bring him to see her in the condition that she was in because it was really scary. But I was like, you know what? Maybe it'll give her a jolt. So I brought him down. She was laying in the waiting area to get the radiation in her bed. They couldn't even get her out of the bed. So when they had to bring her for tests and everything, they had to wheel her whole entire bed out of the room. It's so sad. I remember I brought him down there and she like woke up. Like she was so happy because she hadn't seen him in a couple of days because I was keeping him away from the hospital. So scary, dude. She couldn't breathe. It was just very scary. The way she looked, the way she sounded, the way she was acting, everything. Finally, she got through the radiation. They got her out of the radiation. I think I dropped my son off and I came back to the hospital. And then straight from there, they brought her up to dialysis, and now it's like 6 something at night. And dialysis like sucks the life out of you. You know, I know that from when I was a kid. My mom used to do the dialysis, and then like when she wasn't at work or dialysis, she was sleeping. It's hard. So they got her up to the dialysis center, but they only did like an hour because I think like the first time they could only do like an hour, and then they eventually build up until they get to like 3 hours. So I'm trying to talk everybody out of coming to the hospital that night because I'm like, she went through a lot and she had told me she didn't really want anybody coming up. My mom did this to me a couple of times while she was in the hospital. She would tell me to like tell people not to come up, and then like they would just show up anyways. They don't fucking care what you say. They're going to do what they want to do, what's convenient for them. And I would look like an asshole, though, because then she would act like everything was fine once the people got up there. So it was like, oh, so tell me to tell people not to come up. And then I look like a douchebag. So my brother and Satan come up, right? I'm sitting in the room, and all of a sudden I hear the fucking heels. I swear to God, this sound like rings in my head. It's my Aunt Debbie, my Aunt Betty, my Uncle Bob, and my grandmother, all coming down to the hospital. Now, mind you guys, my grandmother had no idea that my mom had cancer. Nobody told her. You heard me right. Nobody told her. Mom told me not to tell her. And I was like, why? Why wouldn't you tell her that you have cancer? Like, why wouldn't you tell her? I don't understand. Aunt Betty thought it was a good idea not to tell my grandmother that my mom had cancer because she didn't want my grandmother to worry. Well, that didn't fucking go so good. They lied to her, completely lied to her. I wanted no part of it. I hardly talked to my grandmother during this time because I was like, I don't like lying to people, and especially my grandmother, and if she asks me what's going on, I'm not lying to her. So my aunt, my uncle, everybody's up there, right? And it's like social hour at the hospital. Like, I couldn't believe these people. First of all, I told them all what she went through that day and how tired she was and how out of it she was. And for whatever reason, they all decide to come up to the hospital, right? And they're like so loud. They're all like talking and laughing. Ugh. My Uncle Bob's so creepy. He's like enamored with my brother's wife. Like, so they're like talking and laughing and and it's all loud in there. I keep looking at my mom and she's like giving me that look, like, get these people the fuck out of here, please. I swear to God, all my mom had to do was look at me and I could like read her mind. She just gave me this look and I knew she wanted everybody out. I went out into the hallway. I was like, I don't know what to do. I was talking to the nurse. I'm like, she just wants to sleep. She needs rest. And like, these people just a party in there. Like, they don't give a shit. The nurse is like, do you want me to kick them out? So I was like, maybe in a little bit. So finally, I was like, oh, Mom, you look tired. Like, I kept saying that to, like, be like, hint, 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 you fucking assholes. Get the fuck out of here. Nobody's talking to my mom. They're all talking to each other and loud and laughing, but nobody's even paying attention to her. Like, can you people not see that this woman wants to fucking sleep? I just don't get it. I don't get how these people don't have that sense. So finally, I was like, oh, I'm going to get going soon, hoping to prompt everybody to get the fuck out of there, right? My mom's bed at this point in time, it was by the door that went into the hallway. This hospital is like a circle. The hallway is actually like round, and it's like a circle. My mom was about, 20, 30 feet away from the elevators. And my Uncle Bob is leaning against the wall right next to the door to go into the hallway, right? So as soon as I said I'm going to get going soon, it was like Satan's ears went up and she's like, what? Leave? Okay. They stayed for like a half hour most of the time. And she's like, oh yeah, we got to go. We got to go get the babies. This one's got to go do this one. The baby's got to go to bed. All of a sudden, I see my Uncle Bob slink out into the hallway, and he's like leaning in against the wall in the hallway. And I'm like, what the fuck is this motherfucker doing, And I have my phone, so I'm like kind of just sitting there, like texting, pretending I'm like, not paying attention. And all of a sudden, I see Satan rolling out the door first, and my Uncle Bob goes like this to her, and I'm like, what the fuck is going on there? So I'm texting with my husband at this point in time, and I'm telling him, like, these fucking assholes need to get out of here. And all of a sudden, I said, call me. I see my brother and Satan and my Uncle Bob. They all start walking down the hallway together. And I'm like, what the fuck is this all about, Why is this motherfucker involved? This guy's a piece of shit. Let me just tell you guys. And he's real shiesty. Let me just tell you about my Uncle Bob, okay? He was painting at one of my other uncle's houses one time, and the motherfucker stole Playboy magazines from my uncle. He looks like, hey, I'm Bob the good guy, but he's a piece of shit. So he slinks down to the hallway, right? And these motherfuckers follow him. So I text my husband, and I'm like, call me. And he calls me up, and I'm like, Chris, just talk about anything. He's like, the sky's blue. I'm like, oh, really? Uh-huh. Yeah, great. So I'm walking down the hallway, right? I pretend I got a phone call. I'm walking down the hallway all quiet. And I get to the end, and the elevator bank kind of turns off, right? And I hear them, my brother, my Uncle Bob, and Satan. So all of a sudden, I walk out and kind of make my presence known. And as soon as I did, they were like, oh, all right, well, I'll see you later. All right, see you tomorrow, blah, 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 blah. And they just like dispersed. I talk shit all the time. I know what that whole shit talking thing is like. Been there, done that. Why is it all whispering in the hallway with my Uncle Bob? It's very weird. And you guys will see why. Because I'm going to come back in the next one and tell you guys how shady this shit got.